Welcome to Milcert Minutes. Today we'll be continuing our series on the evolution of the M16 in U.S. military service by taking a look at the M16A1. To put this in perspective compared to the previous video where I discussed the M16E1 at length, the E1 was very much like a large-scale trials rifle where the A1 was the full officially adopted rifle. With the official adoption, this allowed other manufacturers to be given contracts to make M16s. However, at the time, Colt still retained exclusive rights to make AR-15s and sell AR-15s on the civilian market. So up until the 1980s or so when their patent ran out, Colt was the only people selling AR-15s on the US civilian market. But to go back to the military production, two other companies were given the license and the tooling to make M16A1s, and that was Hydromatic, which was a General Motors division that made transmissions for cars, and Harrington and Richardson, who had previously done work on the M1 Garand, who had previously made M1 Garands, and had also done work with the M14. This rifle was adopted in 1967, and overall, not a whole lot changed between this rifle and the M16E1. There's some slight changes. This rifle will look a lot different than an early 67 A1. This one is very reminiscent more of a 1970s A1, and it's still nowhere near as clone correct as the E1 you saw in the previous video was, but it gets the spirit of the rifle through. But the bigger thing we're going to discuss here is the Colt Model 614, which was the special version of the M16A1 issued to and used by the United States Air Force, and was used by the US Air Force, and it can be seen in pictures that I'll show you here. Much later into the service life, or service life well beyond other branches with the M16A1. So here's my basic clone of a 614. I actually don't have a dedicated lower for it. I just have a separate upper that I built. I had a spare barrel lying around and another upper receiver. And that's really where all the changes happen, is right here with your upper receiver, your bolt carrier group, that changes between an Army, Navy, Marine Corps model and an Air Force model. The Air Force were never big fans of the forward assist. So on their rifles from the get-go, they were the first to buy the 601, which never had a forward assist. And when the A1 came around, they said they didn't want a forward assist. So they had rifles sent to them that didn't have forward assists. And we're going to take a closer look over here at the upper receivers, and we're going to take a closer look at the bolt carriers too, and show you the differences between a big Army model and an Air Force model. So first, I'm going to begin by discussing the differences between the bolt carrier groups up close. Here we have the standard Army pattern one with the serrated bolt carrier group, so that the forward assist will engage on this BCG. And here you have a slickside one. Another neat thing to notice about this one is that it's kind of hard to see. Maybe I might pick it up there. So in my previous video, I mentioned with the M16E1 that they went away from having chrome bolt carrier groups because they were having difficulty with chrome parts. Well, as they phased in phosphated carriers and bolts, some BCGs would have, I've seen pictures of BCGs where it's a phosphated carrier and carrier key and a chrome bolt, or in this case, it's a phosphated BCG and a chrome carrier key. So it means that this was not the earliest, but this was what would be called a transitional BCG, where some parts are chrome, some parts aren't, dating this to probably about 65, 66. It's fairly old. But it's slickside, and these were originally made because with a rifle with no forward assist, it's not going to need this. It was decided later on that all BCGs would just come serrated because this will work just fine in a slick-sided Air Force style upper receiver and an Army style upper receiver. This isn't going to do you any good in terms of with your forward assist. So these were discontinued shortly after the Air Force went with their A1. These didn't stay around for too long. To continue from the discussion of the bolt carrier group, the major change between the Army model and Air Force model was the fact that the Army model had the forward assist button and the Air Force guns did not. The other thing that's really interesting about this upper receiver specifically that is very uncommon, you really don't see them, even reproductions nowadays, is this raised bit here that doesn't exist on this one. This is what the standard Air Force style M16A1 upper receiver looked like. This is a reproduction. This is an original Colt. These came from the forge with this boss for the forward assist, but these were never drilled out during final production. However, they were just milled off so that Colt could create more slickside upper receivers without having to get these specifically made. These eventually just came in numbers. A good number of these were used in tool room prototypes by Colt and are quite desirable today. I lucked into one some time ago earlier this year, but it's just a really neat little extra thing to show off. But that's overall the main differences between the Army and Air Force model of the M16A1, and that's our brief overlook of the M16A1 rifle. Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for next time, where I'll be posting up my video on the M16A2, and I'll discuss all the differences between the A2 and the A1. Thanks for watching.